So welcome everyone formally to our webinar. This week we're going to be looking at chat and emails mistakes to avoid, which I think as we move more and more onto digital channels is going to be very, very pertinent for everyone. So delighted to welcome to you three speakers who are all experts in their field, and I think will be a very good agenda for everyone to watch. So delighted, I met Leslie O'Flahaven in Miami about probably a year before lockdown came in. There was heady, dim and distant days. And Leslie, eWrite is a writing consultancy, is that right?
Yes, it is. We are a writing training consultancy based just outside of Washington, D.C. Our mission is to help people learn to write well at work. And we think that frontline customer service agents are the writing soldiers of the customer care firmament. So there are few working people whose writing lives have changed as much as customer service agents' writing lives have changed. And the story of omni-channel service is the story of the addition of one written channel after another. So we believe people can learn to write better, and we're here to help.
Excellent. Also delighted to be to welcome Neil Martin back to our webinar from the First Word. I think last time, Neil, you were talking about how to avoid robotic customer service. So I think it's going to be a treat for you today.
Yeah, thanks, John T. Yeah, like Leslie, really, we help customer teams to write like real people and not robots, which is actually a lot more difficult these days now that the robots are getting more human-like. I mean, some of our clients actually ask us to come in and help them because some of their customers ask them, am I speaking to a robot or a person? And of course, when we're on digital channels that we're going to talk about today, we only have words to prove to people that we are human. Sometimes they can't see us, they can't hear us, they just have our words. So yeah, writing like a human is a really important skill, I think.
Excellent. And also delighted to welcome on his first webinar with us, Vit Hawkey from Nice CX1. And Vit, you've also written a customer service book, Customer Service in the Transhuman Age. So you're going to be looking at some of the ways that technology has a role to play in avoiding mistakes on chat and email.
Yes, indeed. Thank you, John, and thank you. Hello, everyone. I'm looking forward to the presentations of Leslie and Neil, especially about the human empathy and everything, and looking forward, really.
So before we dive into the agenda, just a little bit of housekeeping. If you want to watch a replay of today's webinar, you can do that on the following link, callcenterhelper.com/recorded webinars. I know a lot of people like to share our webinars with their management team, and there's a lot of very, very good suggestions today. If you're not already in our chat room, now is the time to do it. We've got 77 people in the chat room so far. That's less than half the number of people we've got online so far. So just very simple. Probably the quickest way is just type in cch.chat or callcenterhelper.com/chat. Put in your first name, last name, first name and email address, and you'd be connected straight through. You can also do it through your phone if you want, and you can put the slides up on one side of the screen if the screen's big enough, and you put the chat room on the other side. Screens are pretty big these days, which is great. If you want to download the slides, there's lots of details, or if you want to connect to any of our speakers on LinkedIn, once you're logged in into the chat room, follow this download webinar slides. You'll find LinkedIn profiles on there for Leslie, for Neil, and for Vit. You'll also find copies of the slides. And also, I think Leslie's going to be talking about a resource later. There's also a link to that in that as well. Also, when you're in the chat room, we're going to be doing a quiz later. Here's the vote button. So for the quiz, the answers will be multi-choice, A, B, C, or D. Just click the button there when we get to the quiz. So that's good. Also, an added advantage, we are going to have a bottle of champagne or a box of chocolates or an Amazon gift card for the best tips. So if you've got any tips about avoiding mistakes on digital channels, leave that in the chat room and we'll pick that live at the end of the webinar. So we're going to start off with a poll, and we want to know which channel gives you the highest quality scores. Which channel gives you the highest quality scores? This is in the main chat window. Is it voice? Is it email? Is it live chat? Is it messaging apps? Is it social media? Or is it video? So which channel do you find gives you the highest quality scores? Leslie, you got any feelings on which channel you think is going to come out top?
Well, I think if more people were doing video would probably come out highest, which of course makes me sad because I'm all about the writing. So other than that, I say live chat.
Okay, well, let's have a quick look at the results. And actually, voice comes out top. Voice has been the big savior for a lot of people during lockdown. As and I guess with a voice, you probably know that you're going to get through to a person, but it does take a while to go. Followed by live chat comes up top of all the digital channels there. Email coming up there. Video has got 1% of the audience, single vote there. So quite interesting overall. But interestingly, live chat overtaking email. I guess live chat is more immediate, so you get a response, whereas email can be several days away. Okay, we're going to plow straight into the agenda now. And so probably a good time to hand across to Leslie, if you'd like to take your perspective on how to avoid mistakes on chat and email.
My pleasure. My pleasure. Hello, everybody. I thought the poll results were fascinating, weren't they? We can't be saying that phone contacts get the best satisfaction in a webinar about writing. So we'll have to talk about writing. Though I think some of the reasons chats got scored highly in your poll have to do with the marriage of the best of phone service, which allows for probing and for quick adjustment to the customer's tone and the customer's needs, and the written record that chat creates. I always say if email and phone had a baby, they would call it chat. And so it's wonderful to see the blending of the two. Well, with that being said, I am going to take the next 10 minutes to talk about failure, which is really not my perspective on writing well, but in this quick review of several samples, we'll talk about certain fails, and then I'll offer ways to avoid those fails, those writing fails. So in chat, the 3 fails we'll talk about: failing to probe, failing to use a friendly conversational expressions in the course of problem solving, and finally in chat, failing to set expectations for wait time. So when the agent has to be away from the chat or when the customer has to be away from the chat. The 3 email fails I'll address: failing to customize a template, just sending a copy and paste template. Number 5, failing to build templates that are easy for agents to customize. And finally, failing to express empathy in email. Sadly, so many frontline customer service agents' capacity for expressing empathy degrades every hour they do their job. So it's management's responsibility to teach empathy, to get budget, let agents have time to express empathy, and to provide them some language for expressing empathy, knowing that they'll customize. So are you ready to see a whole bunch of failures? Let's go. The first example is with live chat. And right here on the screen, I'm showing you a lightly laundered actual chat transcript between a customer named Mark and a frontline customer service agent named Susan, who works for the company I called ABC Housewares Retailer. So in this case, Mark is chatting in because he wants to buy a bird bath or a bird feeder. And he asks Susan, do you sell a bird bath or a bird feeder for my garden? And with a lot of enthusiasm, she checks. She discovers that they have carried these items in the past. They don't have any at this time. So the answer is no. We don't sell a bird bath or a bird feeder. And then there's some pleasantries. And then there's the classic request to complete the customer satisfaction survey, and the chat ends. It started at 9:38, it ends at 9:43. And Susan has abandoned her responsibility to probe a little. There's no reason she can't continue this conversation to find out whether Mark might spend his money on another item. She literally answers his question and the chat ends. Here in red, I've suggested what the probing might look like, the questioning that chat allows. So when she has to respond, we don't have any bird baths right now, he thanks her politely. Now she could say, I'd like to help you find something else. Are you shopping for yourself or are you purchasing a gift? Now, perhaps Susan hasn't been trained to probe, so her managers need to train her to do this. Perhaps she's doing 4 simultaneous chats and she doesn't have the human bandwidth to continue the conversation. So in the right use of chat, she would be able to ask questions and she would take the opportunity to continue the conversation. The second fail is the simple answering of questions without friendliness and without an eye on problem solving for the customer. So here's a conversation between Mike Peterson, a frontline agent at ABC Airlines, and Kathy, the customer. Kathy is trying to figure out which airport gives her the most options when she wants to fly to Atlanta. So she's asking a practical question about how many flights do you offer to Atlanta from these 3 airports? His answer is, the fares are published online. You need to look online. She corrects him. That's not what I'm asking. Do you have more flights from one of these 3 airports? You need to check it online. So you're saying there's an equal number of flights. You need to check it online. He is stoic to the point of being flat, to the point of being aggressive. The fail here is that he doesn't see that some conversational exchanges where he sounds like a human, as Neil said, would allow him to do adequate problem solving for her, even if he is giving her the correct answer now. So here's a light rewrite of his chat with more of the conversational quality, which leads to better problem solving. In the first red comment, he apologizes, as we would do if we were speaking to someone, because he's misread or misunderstood her question. And then he repeats, to find the best flights, you should check online. And then he continues to say, we have roughly the same number of flights. Again, this is conversational diction. He sounds like a person here. We may have more options at another time of day. In the last comment, he takes her perspective. It may take a bit of time to do this schedule research. I see from your standpoint, it may take a bit of time, but it will yield results. And the conversational quality here enables problem solving. In this example, here's an eloquent chat transcript. How do we manage the, are you there? Are you still there? Are you still there? And this is one of the features of chat that either the company or the customer can cause. So as a writing training issue, we have to prepare our agents with words, with verbiage they can use when they need to step away and when the customers need to step away. These are just some light options. Please give me a moment to, it will take me about 3 minutes to update your account. Can you wait? Can you wait for a few minutes or a few moments? In the lower part of the slide, we need the agents to be prepared with what to write when the customer steps away. So this is the grace that I'm urging customer service agents to have is for delays caused on either side. So those are the 3 chat fails that good writing skills and good customer perspectives can improve. Let's look at email now, okay? So here is an email template with the blue background, and the company that sent this simply copied and pasted it out of the knowledge base or use the macro. The customer is complaining because they spent $4.29 on a box of cereal and all the wheat flakes were crushed. The cereal was just powder in the box. And as you can see in the reply, there is no customization at all. In fact, move your eyes as quickly as you can across the reply and see if you can find the word cereal. You can way down at the very bottom of the screen. So the nouns in the template are abstract. Nouns like situation or damage. The customer's spending isn't mentioned. There's no mention of pouring the cereal into a bowl. There's really no sense that John Smith is a human person who read the response. So a better response and a better writing practice would be to customize the template enough so the customer realizes that you read the incoming email. So in this case, I've just used a little bit of customization. I think if we count the words, there's fewer than 20 words of free texting, but it will reassure the customer. The flakes were crushed. You recently purchased the cereal. We repeat the brand name. This is not perfect. This is not going to be, no Nobel Prizes will be awarded for literature in this response, but the customer won't wonder whether the company read the email. If your templates in your knowledge base or in your CRM are difficult to customize, you'll never get the customization that we saw on the previous slide. So here's an example of a template that's also for the grocery store. And this is the template the company would send when they receive a compliment. Someone says, the checker at the grocery store helped me so much, I'm really grateful. This template is short, it is bloviating, it is abstract, and it offers no spaces to help the agent customize it quickly. To start out, we strive to create a culture of caring throughout our organization. There's no room in that opening sentence to customize, and there's no motivation to customize this. This is just really hot air. Someone keyboarded hot air. So this is a very bad template. And actually, let's move on and look at a better one. Here's a template that holds placeholders, which are spaces for a specific type of information, prompts, which are suggestions to agents to include information, and white space, which describes the broken number of paragraphs. White space helps agents customize because it makes the components of the template easier to move around. Here's the template a company would use if someone complains, the window air conditioning unit isn't cooling my room anymore. And as you can see, there's a place to paraphrase the customer's complaint. There's a place to include the model number of the window air conditioning unit. There's a place to add a retail outlet where the customer can go to buy the filter you're suggesting. So these types of templates, the risk is that they will also sound robotic, but if we at least offer placeholders, prompts, and white space, there's a chance the agent can customize. And last but not least, the email failure to express empathy. I'm showing you an email I received in January 2021. This email comes from my doctor's office. I've lightly disguised the name of my doctor's office. And in January 2021, we were all emailing the doctor and asking, will you have a COVID vaccine for me? And if so, how do I schedule an appointment? And on this slide, you are seeing the singularly crabbiest, least empathetic, most self-centered response possible. The person who wrote this has a heart of ice. In fact, if you read it, you'll see that the company, who addressed me as dear valued patient, of course, is complaining about how many customers are asking about the vaccine. This is an entirely a me perspective. It's not a you perspective at all. And empathy is the ability to take a you perspective. So in a nutshell, don't do this. In fact, you beyond creating a culture where your agents feel confident and allowed to express empathy, you may need to provide them with empathy wording. And on this slide, I've listed 9 empathy statements that a company with an empathetic culture could offer frontline agents to use. Over on the left-hand side of this slide, I have a little screenshot of an article at my website where I have 20 empathy statements. If you want 11 more, you can find 11 more there. So I don't think copy-paste empathy works unless you have a culture that allows frontline agents to express empathy and that expects them to express empathy. But if you have that culture, these statements can be really helpful. So thank you for joining my portion of today's webinar, and I'm eager to hand it off to Neil.
Oh, you're on mute at the moment, John.
Okay, just before we do that, we're just going to ask, go to across the chat room. But before I do that, just like to ask what you liked best about Leslie's presentation.
Talk about customer satisfaction survey.
There's certainly some things I like there. If email and phone had a baby, it would be called live chat. I thought it was quite interesting. Use probing questions. I like that one on chat. How to deal with the "are you still there" situation, of preempting that, and underlining the need to customize a response before sending out to the customer. Those are certainly some of the things that I loved there. Let's have a look at some of the top tips and questions coming in from the chat room. Alex has got an opinion. What should give you the best service? For instance, video is probably hard to do well in quality due to the levels of expectation. Video requires the same as voice, but adds a requirement for body language. So that's an interesting perspective. Alex has also said, don't use emojis in your written comms unless you're mirroring the customer. It fits with your culture as well as the tone of interaction. Neil, I don't know if you've got any thoughts on emojis.
Yeah, I tend to agree with that. I think you've got to really mirror your customer and whether they're comfortable or if they're using them. It can really vary. I think it depends on the brand, what kind of brand you are, whether if you're a bit more lighthearted and playful. I think it depends on the channel. We, in our lives, we use WhatsApp and all the time, and we use emojis all the time. So not using them on a channel like that can seem strange. But then in an email, particularly if it's a serious one, they can really strike the wrong tone. So I don't think there's really a straightforward answer there, but I think definitely thinking about your customer, what's going to work for them, what will they understand, and what will they feel comfortable with.
So we've got another Leslie here, Leslie, who said, use correct full words. Don't shorten and spell incorrectly. Always be polite. And my best is speak or type as though it's a member of your family. Treat them with respect and dignity. What's your take on, Leslie, on not shortening words? I suppose instead of don't shorten words, I suppose it should be do not shorten words. But,
well, I think you've gone a bit too far with banning contractions. I think contractions are fine. And I also think that it's, if the customer shows that they are using abbreviated or shortened words in an accurate way, then you should also. In the airline example I gave, in fact, I laundered that a little because the customer had used the airport codes, the 3-letter airport codes. When a customer has that level of accurate use of abbreviations, even if they're writing THX in chat, I think it's okay to mirror it. It's fussy to dress up what the customer is dressing down.
Indeed. So let's have a look here. Another tip. We've got one from Bethany. I don't know, Vit, if there is a technology response here. If there's no response from the customer, let them know you're there, and they can continue the chat when they're ready. Does technology allow a way of ensuring that people know you're still there?
Yeah, definitely it does. Obviously, it depends on the platform that you've been using, but obviously it does and it should. Excellent.
Leslie, I think Leslie's trying to win the top prize here. Says also, always recap over the conversation if you can. Ask them if there is anything else they can help with. Upsell your other services where you can, which is good. So let's have a look. There's a question here from Janet, quite a long one here. Based on your client demographics, industries need to adjust. You will always have customers who want to talk to someone live or communicate or only communicate by email. Chat is usually based on your client's technical ability. We're finding most chats and emails end with, "Can someone call me?" how do you get around this? Based on the interaction where multiple responses are needed, do you suggest to call or speak to an agent? If so, how do you present that back in either email or chat? Or do you reiterate this is a chat platform, etc.? Janet. Neil, then, if you've got any thoughts on this one?
Yeah, I mean, I think call them, I mean, channel of choice. There's no point, in my view, trying to continue with a channel that they're not comfortable with. So I would call them and go from there. And I think when, we saw from that poll earlier that, we get the highest satisfaction scores or highest quality scores on voice. So if that's our kind of most powerful channel and that's what someone's asking for, let's use that, let's reassure them. And then if we need something on a different channel, then we can have that conversation and go from there. But that would be my take. It's a bit of a general take on it, but that's my instinctive feeling on this one.
Wonderful. So we're going to jump across to Neil in a short while. But before we do that, just want to ask the question in the chat room. What's the worst mistake you've seen or made on chat or email? Is it one of the ones that Leslie has put in already? Have you seen any other bad mistakes on chat or email? So if you'd just like to type that into the chat room, we've got quite a number of people typing that away. So while we're doing that, what we'll do is we'll, if I stop sharing here, and Neil, if you'd like to get your slides ready, and then we can look at some of those coming through.
Sure, will do.
So if you'd like to, what we'll do is kick off your presentation. We'll stop in a bit and go through those.
Okay, great. Thanks, Jonty. And thanks, Leslie. Some really good examples of bad writing and then good writing as well, how to fix it. So I guess rather than repeat some more examples, and I know that some brilliant ones are going to come through in the chat now, I wanted to sort of take a broader view and look at the real reason that customer teams make mistakes, and it's maybe a surprising one, and how we can avoid them. So just a little bit about us before I start. So this is our mission at the first word, to banish what we call blah, bull and bunkum from business writing. So we're a team of writers, trainers, account managers based in London. And once we've got rid of that, we help our clients to write and speak with real personality. I've got some of our current clients on the screen at the moment. So why do people make mistakes when they're writing to customers? In our work, we've been doing this work for 10 years now, looking at the way people write to customers. And we found some interesting reasons behind this. So Leslie gave some good examples of these mistakes earlier, but the question is, so we know that people do make these mistakes, but why and how can we fix them? So the big insight from us has been, it's not people, it's culture. And by that, I mean, it's not individuals. So it's easy to look at these mistakes and think, well, that person just hasn't checked it, or that person needs to show more empathy, or it's their fault. But actually, all of these things are a symptom of culture. And how do we know this? Well, one of the things that we do with our clients, one of the first things that we do is do a communications audit. So we take a sample of letters, emails, chats, instant messages, all the things that they write to their customers in real time, and we audit them. And what we found is that teams with a process-focused culture generally make more mistakes than teams with a people-focused culture. And you might be thinking, well, how do you know what their culture's like? Well, the other thing that we do is we go in and speak to their teams. We ask them about how they work. We ask them what kind of messages they get from their managers and what kind of messages they get from their organization. So we get a pretty good idea of what the culture is like as well. So in terms of our comms audits, we score these customer communications against 5 C's. So the things that customers want from any response. So something that's caring, covered, clear, conversational, and correct. And you can see that that gives us a percentage. So what this allows us to do is quality check our clients' customer comms, and also to compare different teams within their organization and to compare different organizations. And what we found is that culture makes a big difference to the scores. So we've recently done an audit for one of our clients who shall remain nameless. And we found that there were two teams. One of the teams had a very people-focused culture, and the other team had a very process-focused culture. But the things that they're doing are exactly the same. They respond to the same kind of complaints, the same kind of customers, same answers. In the people-focused culture, you can see here we've just extracted 4 scores from 4 different people. They're all scoring quite highly. So there's a range between 90 and 72%, but they're all above this grey line here, which is 60%, which we see as a kind of benchmark for meeting your customers' expectations. But then if we look at, say, it's the same company, same job, but different team in a different office and different culture, we can see that the scores are lower. And I've just pulled out these scores and examples, but this trend continues throughout both teams. So what's really interesting about this is that the mistakes, so some of the things that Leslie was talking about, like a lack of empathy earlier, are often down generally to culture, not ability. You know, the ability of the people in these teams is broadly the same. So that, if we're managing a team, for example, that gives us a good insight into how we can help. It's not just about saying, you know, here are some phrases to use, or make sure you proofread your email. It's a bit bigger than that. Just going to show you an example from these two teams to illustrate the difference. So this is an opening to an email. I have actually anonymized this. So I've taken out some of the specific things that Leslie rightly said earlier that actually we need to be specific. So she was talking about cereal. We've taken those out just to anonymize it. But you can see that this opening is empathetic. It says thank you. There's a genuine sorry in there. There's ownership, says I. And this came from the people-focused team. Let's compare that to the process-focused team. It was a very similar complaint that they're responding to, but they do it in a very different way, using very different language. So it starts off with that classic, horrible, formal, standard phrase, I'm writing further to your complaint. So already I'm switched off. It does say I, but most of all, it just says you say this, you're fed up. The customer already knows this, you know, and by paragraph 3, we've really lost them. So again, this wasn't down to 2 different individuals. This is the different teams and the culture that was producing this kind of language and this kind of response. We also notice, when we talk about mistakes, we initially think often of typos. And we noticed as well that the more process-driven teams tend to make more mistakes like the one you're seeing on the screen here. And that's likely to be because those teams are focused on getting the process right, but they're not looking at things like, have I, you know, used too many spaces? Have I got the capitalization right? Because process is the big thing. So what can we do about this? So I'm just going to share with you a bit of a snapshot now of some of the things that great service brands do to create a culture that fosters good writing and hopefully avoids some of the clangers that we've seen. So I think the first thing is just to put people at the heart of all of the conversations that you have with your teams, starting with your customer strategy. If you're doing internal campaigns, slogans in your team meetings, one-to-one sessions, always be talking about the customer and their needs and what's important to them. It's very easy to get bogged down in process. So what you're seeing here is I am Addison Lee, which is a tone of voice we created for Addison Lee that they have literally just put all over their office, as you can see. And then there's quotes from their team all around that. So that says to people, I'm important. It's important that we communicate as one person to another. Don't take it for granted that people know what good looks like. Show them with guidelines, show them with good examples. We've got some examples of the guides that we've created for some of our clients on the screen. And again, make sure that customers and people are at the heart of those. Build it into your quality assessment. So many quality assessments are very heavily focused on process, and process is important, but we mustn't forget people as well. And this is a great way of reinforcing all of those skills like empathy that Leslie talked about earlier. And this will have a big influence on how your teams write. And when they do a good job, recognize and reward that. So we've got an example of a certificate that we gave out to one of our writing champions at one of our clients. It's actually their role to go and help their teams to go and write in this more human and customer friendly way. So big people up when they do a great job. So just a few of the things really that you can do to create this culture that fosters good writing and hopefully avoid the clangers. So that's it for me. I hope that was helpful, everyone. Thanks very much for listening. And I hope that's given you some new ideas about how to think about your own culture and the impact that has on the way your teams write.
Wonderful. Thank you very much for that, Neil. Some great parts in there. We're going to be jumping across to the chat room just in a short while to do the quiz. So if you're not logged into the chat room, just open up a new browser on your phone. callcenterhelper.com/chat will be the place to do that. When you're logged in there, if you could say what did you like best about Neil's presentation. I certainly like the customer focus rather than a process focus. I guess the processes, if you're measuring average handling time, then you probably certainly at an agent level you probably process focused, so you're probably not customer focused. The word I often works better than you if you're responding to people. I'm sorry you feel you felt that way, for instance. And build caring into your quality process. I think that's a really thing, a caring score. Empathy is the sort of, was there empathy there, but caring is actually a lot easier to probably score. So I think some great ones there. Neil asked earlier, what's the worst mistakes you've seen on chat or email? Rena had said, telling the customer to click the link and providing an expired link. Use of capital letters, I think, was pretty bad. Leslie said, the worst mistake I've seen is a personal email that's meant to be sent to one person and went to the whole office. That was a big whoops moment. And Rachel said, I bought a pair of petite jeans, and then the next email from the company was titled, Hey Shorty. So I think that's a pretty bad one, that one. So hopefully if we bring caring into the process, a lot of those will go through. Right, so we're going to jump across to the quiz. In the bottom of the chat room, you'll have these buttons A, B, C, and D. So if you're just not logged in already, then you can go off and do that. So stand by. The first quiz question. We've got 107 people in the chat room, so it's just over half. So I'll give you a minute yet to get in. callcenterhelper.com/chat to take part in the quiz. So true or false? Over a quarter of contact centers use timely live chat pop-ups when their customer is on the website. These little boxes that pop up while they're on the website saying, do you want to chat? So do more than a quarter of contact centers offer that or not? So we've got 45 votes in already. Just wait for a brief minute to see if anyone else wants to vote on there. I think we've got most people there. So the answer is, most of you got that right. Yes, it is indeed true. In fact, 26% of contact centers are using pop-ups when they're on the website. So the second question, what is the industry standard service level for email in the contact center? What's the most common industry standard service level? Is it 80% of emails in 4 hours? Is it 80% of emails in 24 hours? Is it 100% of emails in 4 hours? Or is it 100% of emails in 24 hours? Which one is the most common one according to a call center helper poll? If you'd just like to vote on that. If you're uncertain, you can just put in whatever your company's target is and see how that compares. So indeed, actually, a large number of you got that wrong. The actual answer is 100% of emails in 24 hours. Now, I know the resource planners amongst us will be saying you can't have a 100% target. It's statistically not valid. It could be 99%, but it can't be 100. But that's the target. In fact, we got this scatter diagram. There is quite a big range here, but the biggest blob on the graph is 100% of emails in 24 hours. Some people have got some quite remarkable 50% within 24 hours, and some people have said 100% in several days. So it's quite a range there overall. So next question, what percentage of organizations report that live chat's going to be their next channel that they add to the contact center? Is it 8.5%, B, 28.5%, C, 48.5%, or D, 68.5%? And I got a little spoiler for you. The correct answer ends with 8.5%. In case you're wondering there. So we've got most of you in there. Okay, let's have a look here. Most of you got the right. 48.5% said that would be the next channel in the contact center. I guess a lot of people have that already, which perhaps is why it's not higher. 33% then say SMS or messaging apps like to be the next channel. WhatsApp certainly seems to be one of the hot things. I think Vit's going to be talking about that in a short while. So yes, that's the leaderboard so far. And according to research, on average, how many chat sessions can an advisor be working on simultaneously before service quality is compromised? Is it A1, B2, C, 3 chat sessions at the same time, or D, 4 chat sessions at the same time? So how many on average can people do before service quality gets compromised? We didn't put 5 in. I remember a few years ago, all the chat vendors were saying, hey, someone can do 5 chats at the same time. But I think we've discovered that's not strictly the case. Oh, more people voted on this one. And actually, most of you got it wrong. The answer isn't 3. The answer is actually 2. In fact, 10% of the almost 10% of the audience find that even after 1 chat, service quality goes, but 45% of the audience then said 2 chats, and that's when it starts to get compromised. So there's a trade-off between quality and efficiency there. And I guess, Neil, that might also be an example of process versus people-driven, if you're trying to channel them through.
Possibly, yeah. And you can't really, I mean, for me, blame the individuals for doing that, because that's what they're being kind of targeted on. That's what they're being encouraged to do. And I think often we feel we can put this on people. We can say, oh, that person's not being empathetic, or that person's not giving a great service or taking the time to personalize. But if they don't have the time to do that, and they're in this environment where that's not felt to be important, then they won't.
So it looks like Alex has won. I've noticed Alex has won one of our quizzes before in the past. So well done to you, Alex. We'll be getting on to you to arrange sending out a prize to you. So probably quite a good time now to jump across to Vit Hawkey from Nice CX1. Vit, I don't know if you'd like to put your slides up on the screen and take your thoughts of how some of the technology can help avoid making mistakes on chat and email.
Definitely. Thank you, John. And what I find really interesting about the discussion today and about the tips and examples that Neil and Leslie gave is that there is so much thoughts about empathy. And like each and every one of us know that empathy is important, but we know it mostly from our personal lives. In the business, you know, when I was visiting contact centers over the past 10 years, and I visited hundreds of them, literally across United States, Asia, and Europe, the discussions were almost entirely about productivity, about efficiency, how to save minutes, how to save seconds, how to do more with less people, etc. And just by having this discussion about empathy and how to be more human, that's quite refreshing. So I'll be talking a little about the combination of empathy and digitalization of contact centers. It might sound counterintuitive, but I'll try to blend these topics together. I'm Vit. I've been an entrepreneur for the past 17 years. Actually, I built 3 companies: digital marketing agency, software distribution company, and my last company was a contact center technology business that we happened to sell to Nice CX1 3 years ago. I started my last business because I really hated bad customer service, when person on the other side of the line doesn't act as human. That's what's my passion in my life and in my business as well, kind of like utilizing the cutting edge digital technology to enable humans to be more human, and especially in the customer care. And, consumers value empathy and human connection still, maybe even more than ever. Even though your customers are physically interacting with your organization, in particular during the pandemics, online mostly, customers still value empathy and human connection. According to one of the last PwC research reports, 64% of US consumers and 59% of all consumers globally feel that companies have lost touch with the human element of customer experience. And in the same study, 82% of US and 74% of non-US consumers indicate that they want more human interaction and want more of it in the future. So customers want us, companies, to be more human. We from companies cope with ever increasing number of inquiries from countless number of different channels, and right in the process of digitally transforming our organization, COVID happened. Customers stuck at home, you stuck at home, children screaming and running all over the stressed customers, children screaming and running all over or around you in the home office. And from your 5-year-long digital transformation strategies, here you are with 5-day sprints and 5 months life or die business scenarios. So can we dramatically utilize digital channels and automation while being more human again? I believe we can. The keyword is empathy, actually. And some of the great examples of how to be empathetic in the digital conversation were already mentioned today. And just to back it up with some numbers that you can, for example, use when you'll be talking with your general management, trying to, push for strategies where you can be more empathetic in your contact centers. According to Forbes, empathy emerged as a key organizational capability last year, 2020. And it's no surprise, right? 2020 was an emotional roller coaster for all of us. And companies that are successfully coming out the other side of 2020 are those that exhibited understanding and empathy towards the challenges of our customers and found ways how to make times easier for the customers. So if there is any year where digital was thrust upon all of us, it was actually last year, right? So you can express empathy and fulfill that consumer desire for human interaction in digital conversations, but it doesn't happen by accident. It requires deliberate design and orchestration of your people, of your processes, and of the technology as well. Now, people are obviously the key components to empathy, and making sure that your agents can exhibit empathy to customers. There's been actually quite interesting, almost scientific debate in the past whether empathy is something that can be trained or not. If someone doesn't have an empathy, can you help develop more empathy in them? And in a recent Forbes article, business strategist Michael Solomon talks about how psychologists say there are really 2 types of empathy: dispositional empathy and situational empathy. One is trainable and one is not. Psychologists say dispositional empathy is like other personality traits. So in essence, it's untrainable. So in those cases, contact centers should seek to hire for people with dispositional empathy. However, the other type, situational empathy, can be developed and trained. Situational empathy is the ability to react empathetically to a specific situation or setting, like the ones that were already mentioned today. Situational empathy can be both trained for and enhanced in its delivery by coaching and guidance. You can see on the slide just an example of a quality management console that we use at NICE-CX1 that help actually customer service team leaders to train and track on some of the empathetic, let's say, traits that you can also report on in your contact centers. So we were talking about empathy so far. Now, the second keyword I would like to bring today is digital. Digital channels include social, chat, messaging, mobile apps, email, self-service, AI. And you know that people want them from you and more. The Generation Z customers, meaning anybody who is younger than 25 years old, actually 9 out of 10 prefer to be treated via digital channels. And millennials, so 25 to 34 years old, 84% of them. So although a generational shift is underway, where the majority prefer digital channels such as chat, messaging, mobile, email, and self-service, an overwhelming 92% of consumers view service and options across these channels as poor or mediocre. What does it mean? We need to catch up as companies because our customers are having way higher expectations than what we deliver as companies today. The third keyword I would like to bring today in this super short presentation is social messaging specifically. I was amazed actually, over the past 10 years, I was devoting most of my time to actually help companies to utilize social messaging as the new channel of communication with their customers. And actually WhatsApp or Messenger or WeChat is way more popular than SMS today already, or emails. And you can be way more empathetic there. You can be more personal. You can use emojis there way easier than, for example, via email. It's more expected. So it's actually the great space for your company to test out your ideas, how you can be empathetic. The challenge, however, was so far to put all these three keywords together, empathy, digital, and social together, and implement it. Because what was stopping you very often was technology. Technology was missing to enable you to utilize all the different digital channels and voice channels as well in large volumes while empowering your people to be more human. Obviously, it's no coincidence. I'm representing NICE-CX1 now. So I'm actually very amazed by the technology that we put together at the company that enables you to not only administer all the different channels that you can use from the traditional digital ones like email, live chat, etc., to the more recent ones like Messenger, WhatsApp, etc., and still actually enable your customer service agents to express themselves as human beings, but on a large scale, in large volumes. And that's, I think, very important. That's it from me. Thank you so much.
You're on mute, Jonty.
And if you'd like to see a demonstration of the NICE-CX1 platform, you can put that into the box there, and I'm sure Vit will arrange that for you. Customers want us to be more human, so I guess that's an important one. It does beg the question why we're putting in so many robots if they want us to be more human. Empathy is really important. And situational empathy, one of the two types of empathy, can actually be designed and can be trained. And it's important to arm your agents with the full customer context. That's some of the ones I've talked through there. So that would be great. So let's have a look at some of the top tips and questions that are coming through from the audience. We've had a tip from Aaron, who says the rule used to be put your most experienced agents on digital channels, especially social media. Be careful with this, as when your self-service digital engagement improves, the remaining contacts coming into the contact center will tend to be more complex ones. And depending on your customer demographic, these may be coming in on other channels such as voice. Leslie, you were nodding away then.
Yes, indeed. I think deciding where you're going to put your most competent writers is a challenge. They are a treasure. And if you think, oh, social media is extra scary because the agents are writing in public, and you pull all your great writers off to the channel where your company risks embarrassing itself, this person is right. You may need your most experienced writers distributed across your channels. You do. So that comes to the fundamental belief in my work, in my company, is that with appropriate and frequent writing training, most people can build adequate or excellent writing skills to do the job. So you don't have to take your best and longest tenured people and kind of move them around from channel to channel. Teach everyone to write.
Okay, Bethany says we only allow one agent to take a maximum of 3 chats and no more than this in one go. If ability is little lower, then it's just 2 chats. Quite interesting. Kelly has asked a question. When do you stop using people or culture answers and move into the process answers? ESP is people culture answers aren't resolving the issue with the customer.
Especially.
Okay. So Neil, I don't know if you've got any answers on that. When do you stop using people and when do you move more to process?
I don't think if I've understood the question correctly here, I don't think it's an either or choice. I don't think you have to move from one to the other. They're both important. And I know I was focusing on people in my presentation, but in our experience, companies are very good at looking at process. It's just there in contact center teams. But the thing that gets missed is people. So I think process has to be there. It's always there. It's just making sure that people don't get lost. I'm not sure I've answered Kelly's question or understood it in maybe the way that she meant it there, but that's kind of my take on that balance there.
Yes, I think that's probably true to say. Question in from Ian and Vit. I don't know if you've got a thought on this one. If you have multiple chat sessions open at the same time and multiple messages hit at once, have you got any ideas on how to prioritize which to respond to first? I often tend to respond to all as quickly as I can, so my response can be interpreted as quite curt. Any thoughts on that, Vit?
I'll make it even more complicated. So in many contact centers we've been working with that are super complex when it comes to number of chats that they're dealing with, what's helpful is that actually some of the use cases of customers contacting the contact centers, they don't want to deal with customer service agents. They might have something super easy to resolve, and actually having a chatbot that is set up for extremely easy use cases like these, it's actually more pleasant for the customers. So you can actually take out portion of the incoming chats by having really greatly set up chatbots that are great for the customers and not bad for the customers. And for the rest, you've got the customer service agents. But even for these incoming messages that need to be dealt by humans, you can have a super quick survey for the customer who will just say what they want. And based on what they want, you will find the right customer service agent with the right availability. So again, you can minimize the number of chats that the agent is dealing with. It doesn't have to be 3. It can be the maximum number, but it doesn't have to be like that. So I'm responding slightly to a different question, but I think, again, the technology can play a major role in giving the right work to the right people or machines. So again, the agent can focus on the actual conversation and not, clicking copy and paste or clicking between tabs.
So a couple of opinions just before we wrap up. Bethany says it can be easy to be process driven rather than people driven. Definitely worth taking the extra time to read and think, how would I feel with this response? I think that ties very well with what you said, Leslie, and also with Neil. Jonah said, I find consumers are happier when they're speaking or chatting with a live person. I think that summarizes the first part of your presentation. Right, that's all we've got time for at this point. So if you just put it in the chat room, what did you like best about today's webinar? The winning tip comes in from Ian, who says, When selecting agents to work on live chat or direct messaging platforms, you need to be careful they're comfortable with using the written word in the local language. Otherwise, a simple request or question can quickly turn into a dissatisfied customer and potentially a complaint. We tend to, I guess, employ people who are happy chatting on the phone, but that doesn't necessarily tie in very well necessarily to chatting through live chat or for email. We've got a little survey. It's only 3 questions long if you'd like to do that before you leave. If you want a copy of a replay of the presentation, and I think there's such great presentations here, I'd be surprised if you didn't want to share that with your management team. callcenterhelper.com recorded webinars. Probably we'll have that up within an hour. Next week, we're going to be looking at forecasting and scheduling on digital channels. And just like to thank to our 3 speakers. Leslie, thank you for joining us today.
My pleasure.
Neil, also thank you for joining us.
Thanks very much. Yeah, it's been great.
And Vit, thank you for dialing in for your first webinar.
Thank you so much.
Brilliant. Well, we look forward to meeting everyone next week, same time, same place. Thanks a lot. Goodbye.